Our research has led us to conclude that operations at the Department of Orthopedic Surgery at Hipkins Hospital can be modified such that the number of surgeries completed per day can be increased to 7 surgeries per day, while reducing patient flow time to approximately 149 minutes, maintaining healthy utilization rates, and keeping variance low across work functions and roles. The combination of modifications needed to achieve these metrics include the addition of one anesthesiologist and one surgeon per group, the addition of one operating room per group, and the reduction of intra-arrival times to 60 minutes.
Okay, so during this review, we're going to start with base evaluation of the base case, the current conditions of Hipkins Hospital. We'll then move on to a review of possible pooling of work functions and spaces, followed by the impact of additional roles in operating rooms, and which will then be followed by possible reductions in patient intra-arrival time, which is ultimately what leads us to our optimal condition for the hospital.
When considering the base case, a low number of surgeries were completed for each group, averaging between 4 to 4.2 surgeries per day, with a high total patient flow times being observed. Percent utilization for the existing operating, anesthesia, and surgical staff suggests excessive overutilization of these resources, regardless of the low number of surgeries being conducted. All initial evaluations for potential optimizations will be evaluated for Group A alone. Promising solutions and combinations thereof will be applied to both Groups A and B in later sections. Initially, the addition of pooled support staff members were evaluated in an effort to increase the number of surgeries completed and to reduce the total patient flow time observed. This consisted of either adding 2 operating room assistants or 2 anesthesiology assistants to the staff. Observations were that the use of pooled assistants increased the number of surgeries completed to between 4.4 and 5 surgeries per day. Where applicable, operating room or anesthesiology utilization was reduced to approximately 77%, and the utilization of these assistant pools was approximately 55%.
Okay, so another thing that we wanted to fully understand at the start was the impact of pooling the actual operating rooms against the base case to understand its impact. What we found was a marginal improvement to patient flow time. However, we believe that the utilization variance of the surgeons is just not warrantable for this condition, given the great variance numbers we see in the data, as it stands.
The addition of an anesthesiologist, or both an anesthesiologist and a surgeon, to the already pooled support staff was evaluated. This consisted of 1 anesthesiologist or 1 anesthesiologist and 1 surgeon being added to the already increased staff. Use of an additional anesthesiologist or an additional anesthesiologist and an additional surgeon increased the number of surgeries completed to between 5 and 6 per day. The combination of both an additional anesthesiologist and an additional surgeon allowed for both an increase in the number of surgeries completed and a reduction in total patient flow time. Assistant pool utilization was approximately 40% for the operating room and 43% for the anesthesiology group. In addition to the previously applied staffing changes, the addition of either a 3rd operating room or a 3rd operating room and a reduction in patient intra-arrival time was evaluated. Use of an additional operating room and reduction in patient intra-arrival time to 60 minutes increased the number of surgeries completed to 7 per day. The combination of both an additional operating room and a reduction in patient inter-arrival time to 60 minutes allowed for both this increase in surgeries and a reduction in total patient flow time. Utilization of all support staff and primary staff were down to manageable levels, while assistant pools were underutilized. Compared to the base case, the following efficiencies were observed when applying the process changes described previously in combination to both groups A and B. 1. Completion of 7 surgeries per day per group. 2. A reduction in total patient flow time by approximately 29.2%. And 3. Utilization within OR, anesthesia, and surgical functional groups at approximately 55%. It should be of note that further efficiencies may be obtained by addressing the underutilization of pooled assistants. Applying the process changes described previously, further cost savings can be observed by removing the pooled support staff. With the removal of the pooled support staff and retaining the changes described previously, the following observations can be made. 1. The retained completion of 7 surgeries per day per group. 2. A slight increase in total patient flow time with a small observed increase in standard deviation for that flow time. And 3. Retained balanced utilization within the operating room, anesthesia, and surgical groups at approximately 62% on average. It should be noted that removal of the pooled assistants may contribute to minor variations in patient flow time and a potential decline in associate morale due to the increased utilization observed.
Okay, so in review of the optimal condition that we've arrived at for efficacy of possible pooling of the operating rooms, we found that utilization of the staff was marginally increased, but variance was also increased too. So for that reason, we believe that to be undesirable. What we did find in this review is that pooling with the removal of the physician's assistants offered up more utilization with less costs and no impact to flow time. And we believe a team morale effect could be overcome based on the knowledge that we've added operating rooms and surgeons. Okay, and finally, with this optimal case, we wanted to understand the impact of possible improvements of variance on this solution. So we tested it against what an improvement in variance could be for surgery times. What we really found is that the variance is actually quite low, and while you guys should always strive to improve in variance, that an actionable step isn't going to generate a tangible improvement in the flow times.
In summary, the following operational changes are suggested below in the second table compared to the base case conditions above. These changes included the reduction in intra-arrival time to 60 minutes, the increase in anesthesia and surgical head counts by 1 person each per group, and the addition of 1 operating room per group. These modifications result in the achievement of 7 surgeries per day and a reduction in patient flow time by 29.2%.